So afterwards, when the first airline vacancy came, there were thousands of pilots who appeared for that vacancy. And now there was so much burden on us that
So right now it's the month of April, and most of you might have cleared your 12th papers, and if you are doing your graduation, it would be a last month of your graduation. And after that, if you are thinking on becoming a pilot, so right now is the time to make a decision. So we have come up with this podcast to discuss about the finances, because if anyone thinks about becoming a pilot, the first thing that comes in mind is how to arrange the finances and how to get that first airline job. So today in this podcast, we are going to discuss everything related to the finances of pilot training. So welcome to India's #1 pilot podcast. And today we have Capt.Neha and Nilay with us, and we'll be sharing our expertise on the same.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to India's #1 pilot podcast. Thank you for watching, subscribing, and we enjoy your presence here. And one of the most frequently asked question that we get is, how do we arrange funds for this? Well, here's the thing. Yes, pilot training is expensive, but there are certain decisions that you can make which will make the financial planning for it a bit easier. Okay, so yes, definitely this is not a financial advice, so any financial advice, take it from your CA or whoever is actually qualified to do so. Okay, this is basically how we have managed funds and how was our experience about pilot training and arranging funds. And then even after the CPL, how do we go with the aftermath, because most people end up taking loans and stuff. So when there is a loan, that loan has to be repaid, right? So all of those things is what we are here to discuss today. Thank you for joining, and make sure to subscribe, press that bell notification if you haven't, and let's get started.
So if a student decides to become a pilot, what's the amount he should look at to get his or her CPL?
Like what we have spent is about what?
$150,000.
Yeah, and then the type rating and everything.
That includes the type
yeah,
rating.
that does. Yeah, in dollars, if you would consider, for sure, about 1.15 crore or approximately something like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is a separate thing. So this is for the cadet program. Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to do the conventional pathway, it would cost around 45 to 50 lakh rupees.
Correct.
And depending on the fuel cost, the insurance cost, which is going up day by
Correct.
day, this price may increase in future, let's say in the coming 2 to 3 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, back in time, if we look at it, in her times, the CPL was done in 20 lakh rupees.
20 lakh rupees.
Yeah, that is including multi-engine and everything. 20 lakh rupees. That is not including the type rating, but
Yes.
including multi-engine and everything. Okay, from India. And back in time, I guess even abroad, it would cost about 25 to 30 lakh rupees. So yeah, that is what it is. The point being, as you mentioned, the fuel prices, okay, and the dollar prices, right? Honestly speaking, what I have seen while she was flying back in 2006-7, and even right now as we did our flying, okay, flight training costs in India and abroad are pretty much the same, right?
Yes.
The only point is cost of living is more in the Western countries, right?
Yes. And the difference is not much, I would say, like around 5 lakh rupees, 5 to 10 lakh rupees, depending on the lifestyle of an individual.
Correct.
That's the only difference I see. Otherwise, the cost is almost the same for training in India or abroad.
Absolutely.
Yes, so I think we will divide it in two parts. So one is the conventional pathway and the other one is the cadet pilot pathway. So
Correct.
if we talk about the conventional pathway, then it has 3 steps which we will consider so that students will know it better. That is CPL training, type rating and airline training, if at all, if that airline is charging for. And the other one is cadet pilot pathway. So that they have a clear picture of the expenditure, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Also about so often we do get asked what's the difference between cadet pilot pathway and the conventional pathway. Honestly speaking, I feel there are assessments in both. The only primary difference is that the assessments are before starting the flight training, and in conventional pathway, it is after getting the CPL, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So
neither is easier or more difficult,
Correct.
anything of that
Correct.
sort. It is pretty much the same. And most commonly, this is a bit away from the topic of the finances, but most commonly a 12th pass is usually preferring either because of the fear of the assessments. Like, honestly speaking, assessments are gonna be part of pilot career, right? Even be it cadet pilot pathway or conventional pathway,
Yes.
there will be DGCA exams, there will be different checks for
Yes.
the skills, and even after you become an airline pilot,
Yes.
there are checks, right?
definitely, yeah.
So the only way about it is that should, in my opinion, not be the deciding factor that whether you should go for a cadet pilot pathway
Yes.
or conventional pathway, because assessments will be there regardless, right?
Some people think that they have a choice to go for a cadet pilot pathway, but it is not up to a candidate whether you can choose the cadet pilot pathway. It is up to an airline to select you as a cadet pilot, and then your preparedness to spend that amount.
Yeah, a
So-
candidate can choose to appear for
Appear
the
for the-
assessment, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, before the cadet pilot program have come up, the people like you did your conventional, right?
Yes.
So there are people who got the job through the conventional pilot because it was the method which was only method to get a job into the
Yes.
airline.
Yes.
Because the cadet pilot program has started a couple of years ago, so now people have assumed it ki if you get into a cadet pilot program, you have got the job and your life is set and everything is done. But if you get into a cadet pilot program, you get a letter of assurance. It's not a job guarantee or something. What it states is like if you clear all the tests within the standards which company have set, then you get a job into that airline depending upon the requirement of the airline.
Yeah, it's a subjective job
Yes.
offer, or potentially the candidate will be recruited into an airline on successful completion of
Yes.
the
Training.
Yes.
training.
Letter of intent is the one which is issued to the successful candidates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it depends airline to airline. Different airlines who work in different way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking about the cost, so the main hurdle for aspiring pilots is how to arrange the funds. As an individual, like if someone is rich, okay, they have the funds, they can go for the training directly. But if someone is from the middle class family, so they have got couple of options. One is to get a loan from the bank. So for that, they need to have a collateral, something which they can borrow the
Yes.
money from the bank. Other thing is if they have a family, they can like ask the family for a loan. That would be better.
Right. So speaking of even the rich, okay, most people are not rich at their class 12th. Their parents are rich probably, okay.
Yes.
And no, seriously, like who's unless you are basically what Mark Zuckerberg or something, you are not rich at class 12th. You're really not, right? Parents can be rich, and they can choose to help their child to actually go after the dream of becoming a pilot, for sure,
Yes.
right? But if anyone has a dignity of their own and wants to create a self-identity, I feel if it is sponsored by parents, pay them back. Like, or if you are getting a loan, then you are by law entitled to
pay
to
the
pay it
bank.
back, right? So it is pretty much if after 12th, right? If after 12th, if someone is going for pilot training, then that person is pretty much borrowing money either from the parents or the bank, right? And if someone has their own money, then they don't need our advice, right? Yeah. I mean, in 12th, if someone has accumulated 1 crore rupees or 1.2 crore rupees or even 70 lakh rupees, yeah, they're doing pretty good in life.
If someone has money to go for the pilot training, they need to clear the DGCA exams. They need to clear the assessment to get into the airline.
Yes.
Okay, so if you have money, yes, you can go for pilot training, but you have to equally work hard and clear all the exams, complete your training, and then apply for the airline interview, prepare for that. And once you clear it, and that is the time when you get the job.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the other day you tweeted on your Twitter, which you just started, right? Like,
Yes.
pilot training is not a get rich quick scheme. It takes hard work, and the only degree to which what was it? Yeah, something. Only degree to which an aspirant can be successful is the degree to which he or she can work.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that's something. So having money is a prerequisite to be a pilot, but that is not the only thing that is required to be a pilot. But apart from that, there are a lot of, as we have discussed every time, that yes, knowledge, skill, and your experience as well as your attitude are the ones which are quite required for you to be a successful pilot. Yeah, definitely. Finances are required because you need to pay for your pilot training. So when talking about the CPL, then when we consider about conventional pilot program, of course, it will be dependent on whether you do your flying in India or abroad. As you discussed that since the living cost is different, it will cost about 40 to 50 lakhs for your CPL, right? So when we think of financing for this much amount, you can either go for asking parents, as you said, and then if you do not have that much amount in possession, then go for a bank loan. But of course, you need to keep a buffer. You cannot have a bank loan for a very stimulated, very short period of time. Considering the job availability and the requirement in the market, keep a longer buffer, like take a loan.
What do you mean by buffer exactly?
So buffer is the time period from the time you get your CPL to the time you get a first airline job. That is the buffer I am talking about here, which is about couple of years. You must keep
Depends on the market. If the market is good, like 2018, 2019, like there are CPL holders who got their job within 3 months of the issuance of CPL,
absolutely,
right?
yes.
And the person who has completed his or her CPL in 2020 are still waiting for the first opportunity,
March
right?
2020, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, who would explain the buffer period better than you, honestly? Like, right? I mean, she has struggled a lot, bro. I mean, in 2008 she completed, and I've seen her like literally working for 15-16 hours a day straight up for all those years. I'm not kidding. Like working as in literally standing and teaching students. That's what she was doing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So
Yes.
yeah. You can tell us that story.
So I got my CPL back in the year 2008, in mid of 2008. So at the same time, the global economy was struck by recession, and everybody knows that it was a very slump in the economy, right from US to the entire world.
Yeah, 2008 was one of the biggest.
Yes.
Yeah.
So because of that, all the airline vacancies were cancelled. So I didn't get an opportunity to even write any airline exam. So when I started CPL, that time there were so many jobs, and that's why there are thousands of pilots who started their pilot training.
Correct.
And by the time they finished, there was like chunk of pilots who were now waiting. So this accumulated in the year from 2008 till 2011, and then everyone was hoping that things would improve.
Right.
But again, in 2011, things started going down for Kingfisher, which was the erstwhile airline, which was one of the major airline back then. apparently the 5-star airline of India.
Was it though?
It was. I have flown once.
I've flown only once to Srinagar.
Yeah.
I
Have
haven't
you-
flown on
So,
Kingfisher.
Right.
and because Kingfisher shut down in the year 2012. So again, now whenever an airline shuts down, all pilots and the entire workforce is absorbed by the other airlines, which require that workforce.
Yeah, because those
So-
pilots are all trained
Yeah,
pilots,
they
right?
are
They're
all-
ready to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all those Airbus 320 pilots were absorbed by those airlines which had Airbus 320.
Right.
So now, again, the airline vacancies were pushed for later.
Yeah, the same pretty much happened
And-
in Jet Airways, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But now the all experienced pilots are absorbed, and now airlines do not need any fresh pilots, right? So that is the time when again all those unemployed pilots who were not able to
Correct.
even write any exam, they were stuck in between. And there were very few airlines, like in between Jet was coming up with type rated pilot vacancies
Correct.
for Q400 or Boeing 737, where they used to charge a huge amount to even write the exam,
Correct.
and you don't know
Yeah.
whether you are actually going to get selected or not. And they were charging a huge amount to even only write the exam. So
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
was like, this is something which is very
True.
not really
Like
great.
it really depends on the demand and supply. Like currently, if you see this scenario, it resembles to what you just said, right? Right now, the demand of pilots is less than the supply, right?
Correct.
So right now, there's a demand for experienced pilot for sure, but
That is always there,
yes,
right? Demand for captains is always there. Demand for SFOs is always there because they're ready. They're type rated. They have airline training. They have everything. They have experience, right? Yeah.
yes. So they have, but right now, if you see, like due to COVID, like we started in our training in the year 2019, right, when the aviation was booming and
Yeah.
stuff. So because of COVID, since the past 2 years, there hasn't been any hiring from the airline side. So
Correct.
if you consider the number of CPL issued in those 2 years, okay,
Yeah.
so they are also waiting to get a job.
Mhm.
But right now, the aviation has started picking up slowly,
True.
and in the coming months, we would see hiring possibly.
Yeah, most probably.
Yes. Yes.
So we are in a kind of similar situation in which you were. And I have also a friend who was in a similar situation. So he worked at a call center for 4 years after getting his CPL. And right now he's a captain in one of the airlines in India.
Great.
So there are people who have stuck to the aviation
True.
after they got their CPL. They
Correct.
never gave up. They persisted in
Yeah.
what they did, like they worked hard and
Right.
they get the job. So
Correct.
if anyone wants to become a pilot and if they stick to it and work hard,
Right.
then I think they would mostly get into the airlines.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, in the short run, if we would look at it, okay, yeah, there could be a situation which Capt.Neha mentioned as a buffer period, right? If there is a low time, then yeah, that is a difficult time because already the money on pilot training is spent, right?
Definitely.
The EMIs are on, right? And it is a difficult place when you even thought that 25,000 for appearing for SpiceJet exam
Yes.
was a big amount
Yes.
because
Yes.
like the major chunk of money is spent and then
Correct.
spending even further, be it 25,000 and 25,000 was a big amount back in
Correct.
time,
Correct.
right? So it actually is falls under finally one thing that yes, pilots are compensated really well, but what exactly pilots get compensated is for the skill, as you mentioned, that it's a demand supply dynamic.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
So if the requirement, if the demand for that particular skill is more and availability of it is less, then the compensation is more, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Right. And if it is otherwise, then even the compensation is lesser, right? So in general, it is about demand and supply. It is not anything specific to any industry or anything. For an example, if there is a crane operator, a specific operation crane operator, okay, or a tunnel boring machine operator who's an engineer actually, okay, like civil engineers, okay, that operator, if there is only one operator in India, okay, and there are 3 companies that are hiring that particular tunnel boring machine operator, the demand for this one person, whom I would call as Jack, okay, is you can't put any number on it, because probably it depends on the project cost itself, right? So the same way, I mean, this is one binary example, but in a broader perspective, the same is with pilots demand and supply, right?
Yes.
So right now, at this point, as we shoot in April 2022, okay, maybe there is less demand and more pilots available. But if we look at it in the long run, if we look at it down the line 5 years, if we look at it down the line 10 years, right? Aviation is growing. There are more aircraft coming in, right? And they are gonna require pilots, right?
Yes. So it's just like if someone has a CPL right now, so they need to wait. They need to stick to aviation. Like they can get a job or something related to aviation, like a ground staff, okay, like a dispatcher, something like that.
That would be the best way actually in 2 perspectives. One is they remain in contact with aviation. Okay. Also, the job pays, right?
Correct. Yeah, that nowadays, whenever I have flown with so many first officers who have done their CPL back in that 2008 to 11 time.
True.
And they are now flying with airlines. They were doing various businesses. Some of them were in their family business, or some of them were doing jobs at the airport, as you mentioned, and some of them were doing the other jobs other than aviation.
Correct.
If they had got an opportunity, so they stayed connected with aviation and made sure that yes, whenever the first available opportunity comes, they get through. So persistence is absolutely important.
Honestly, there are people that work in an airline as a ground staff or a crew or as an engineer.
Yes.
Okay, and they do their pilot training in the meanwhile, right? They'd clear their DGCA exams. Then they'd on their week offs, if they are having a ground-based job, then on their week offs they'd go to a flying club and do their flying.
Correct.
These are true stories, and their dreams do become true, right?
Correct. True.
Like Nikita Tomar, right? She has worked really hard. Like someday, hopefully she comes on a podcast. Okay. But absolutely. So most people don't see the struggle that goes behind those bars, right? It's not really easy to wear those bars. They just don't come just like that. It comes out of real hard work. And be it hard work, persistence, all of these terms can seem like just broader term, vague terms, but no, they are not. Hard work means your attention, time, and everything is really on that one goal of getting into an airline or getting a CPL or clearing DGCA exams, all step by step, right?
Correct. So afterwards, when the first airline vacancy came, there were thousands of pilots who appeared for that vacancy. And now there was so much burden on us that now the competition is immense. I worked really hard and made sure that in that particular vacancy I do get through. And yes, it was great that I got through in the very first batch of that particular vacancy. So they had, graded as per the scores in the written exam, and as per that all the further steps were planned for the induction. And yes, I'm glad that it happened and worked that way. And
Great
yes, it
work.
paid off. Yes, it did pay off.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I've seen you work all that time, and absolutely that is something that helped many students of yours
Yes.
of back in time who are
Yes.
airline pilots now.
Yes.
Okay, that has helped you as well to stay current with aviation,
Yes.
and when you got an opportunity, you gave it more than 100%. You gave it
Yes.
1,000%, that you had to make it work, and you did make it work, right? And now, from the learnings and from basically the data of those years of DGCA exams, and until now you're teaching, even now you're teaching at CNTAA, right?
Yes.
So from that data, you have formulated finally a structured course on CNTAA online that
Definitely.
exactly delivers to what is required for the DGCA exams, what is required for pilot career, and
Correct.
yeah, that's why your students are having great results now. So
Yes.
so
indeed.
none of that struggle really goes waste.
Definitely not.
And-
And I remember back in time when that entire induction process was on, which was for almost 6 months, and every day I used to just sleep for 4 hours every day for 6
Just
months.
4 hours.
Just 4 hours. So I used to work from morning.
This is not when she was flying. Okay, this was a ground work. Okay,
Yes.
she won't be doing that when she is flying. She will take enough rest
Rest.
every time. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. So I used to teach from morning 9 till evening 4.
Sometimes
I used to
even
come back home.
earlier, right? Like when the
Yeah.
exams would get closer, then
Yeah.
7, 8 in the morning, and
Right. And then come back home from 5 in the evening to night to 3 o'clock. I used to study for the airline exams. And then again in the morning, sleep from 3 to 7, get ready, go to class, and then teach again and repeat. So this used to be the timetable for
Yeah,
those 6
yeah,
months, and it was really, really hard. But yes, it was worth it, and yes, I made it.
yeah,
So it
you
was
got to
great.
an airline because of that hard work. You
Yes,
could you
yes.
could also start CNTAA. Not start, but you could also formulate CNTAA into a structured course.
Correct.
Like we have seen it. You have
Yes.
passed in
Yes.
in 30 days with the course. Yeah.
Great.
It was amazing experience. I would say the structure of CNTAA is something very precise. Like
Right.
all the focus is towards the concept, which leads you to clear the exam. And I couldn't imagine how hard you worked to get that airline job. I'm happy to see you to work as a captain in airline after you have been through all the struggle.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned that some airline used to charge around 25,000 rupees for the
25,000, 60,000
in 2008, right?
Yeah.
This is in 2010,
Right now-
11.
11.
In 11, okay. Right now I heard through the social media that they are charging around 45,000 for the assessment, and for the airline training some airlines are asking around 50 to 75 lakh rupees.
That's crazy amount which they are charging these days, what I've heard. Now, these airlines consider that whatever training they give, they should charge from the students themselves. Like the airline training includes training first on a simulator for. So again, it depends on whether it type rating and the airline training. So airline training would include, apart from type rating, it would be first of all the observation flights, as well as it would be the base check. So base check is nothing but, so there will be 3 students, like 3 junior first officers or trainee first officers, who will be taken on a flight to do circuit and landings on empty aircraft. So when this is planned, there is approximately 18,000 to 20,000 kgs of fuel spent in those 3 hours.
And the whole aircraft, which costs hundreds of crores.
Yes.
Which actually makes a revenue for the airline.
Yes.
It is not making the revenue.
Correct. So basically, if you consider per student, so let's say the 18,000 kgs, out of that 6,000 kg per hour, because in that 1 hour, that student ends up doing 6 takeoffs and landings. So in this 6,000 kgs, if you consider today's fuel cost approximately 75 rupees to 80 rupees per kg, all right. So then this comes out to be approximately 5 lakh rupees, okay, for 1 hour, all right.
Correct.
And then the airline is flying that empty aircraft. So
and the aircraft maintenance and so many things. I mean, which we don't exactly know how much it costs to airlines, but definitely it costs some significant amount of money to the airline.
So on the empty aircraft, let's say per hour, they charge on an average 5,000 rupees per passenger, right?
Correct.
So if you consider about 200 passengers, that comes to about 10 lakh rupees. So 10 lakh rupees and then 5 lakh rupees of fuel. That comes to about 15 lakh rupees, which airline is paying per student.
Correct.
Just on the base check.
Just on 1 hour of base check. And that way, 3 hours on that particular day. So per individual cost, if you consider it's about 15 lakhs airline is anyways paying.
What is that CASK, right? It's called CASK, right? Cost per seat kilometer, right?
CSK.
CSK, right? Yeah. So CSK is what is CSK exactly?
So let's say you're traveling from Mumbai to Delhi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's 1,000 kilometers.
Correct.
Okay. So in this time period, the flight time is about 1 hour and 50 minutes. Okay. Now, in this entire duration, whatever the amount airline spends, whether it is fuel cost, whether it is operational cost in terms of maintenance or salaries of pilots and cabin crew, and the other areas costs which are there to be paid by the airline.
Correct.
So that total cost is divided by 1,000 kilometers. Okay. So that much cost airline will end up paying per kilometer per seat. Okay, so this is per kilometer and then divided by total number of seats.
Correct.
Okay, so 2-step process. Okay,
that's usually mentioned into the financial reports of any public airline, right?
Yes. So those need to be minimum as much as possible in order to get more profits to the airline.
Airlines from the Gulf don't care about it, I guess.
They get fuel for free.
Yes. They have their own fuel.
Cost index, right? They go on the highest cost index that there is, and that's not a concern for them unless it hampers the range of the aircraft, right?
So cost index is a terminology which will be given to the pilots for that particular sector. So it is mentioned in the operational flight plan. We need to put that number in the FMGS in order to execute that flight. So according to the cost index, the FMGS, which is the flight management and guidance computer, that will decide at what speed the aircraft should be flying. So the lower cost index, so cost index ranges from 0 to 999. Okay. The lower cost index, let's say 0, that means you will fly at a lower speed. Okay, but you will take the maximum time to reach your destination.
Correct.
Okay, the higher cost index means you will fly at higher speed and you will reach less time to reach your destination.
Correct. So airlines can operate more flights with the same aircraft with the higher cost index.
So that way airlines will also be getting more revenue by operating more flights. So the airline decides, depending on the fuel cost at that time, how much cost index we should give to that particular flight. Okay.
Smart, right?
Yes.
So
very smart.
So that is cost index.
Yes, this is something new which I learned. Like I didn't know about this cost index.
Yeah.
Basically, it comes under the strategy of operation of a particular airline.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. The basic reason is if the cost of the fuel is less, then the cost of equipment is more. Basically, cost of equipment is the
Operational
same, but you can operate say 5 flights in a day. Okay.
Yes, when the full prices are low.
With say 6 cost index, right?
Hmm.
And with 0 cost index, you can only operate 4. So the revenue on 6 flights is more than the
Yeah. So
smart
that way
stuff,
they,
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Speaking about that 15 lakh rupees which you just told for the airline training, right? So if it takes around 15 to 20 lakhs per individual to get the airline training. So right now what I think is because of the market, because of the supply and demand, the airlines are charging more than what is
Some of
required,
them
right?
are.
Yes, and there is nothing legally we can do about it because it's a private entity and they are doing their business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. And moreover, like people are ready to pay for it.
Yeah,
That's why-
whether it is right or wrong, okay, depends on your perspective of looking at it. Yes, if someone is affected by it, for sure that person will say that it is wrong. Okay, I completely understand. Okay, from the other side of the airline, I mean, I'm not siding any airline, no nothing, or not against any airline, no nothing. The only point, if you see it from the airline's perspective, the airlines have struggled a lot in the period of COVID.
Yes, definitely.
A lot.
For 2 years.
And yes, they are making some revenue right now from the operations, correct? And sure. But then they would want to reduce their costs as much as possible on training. So this is not something that is making them money, but this is something that is saving them training costs for the new recruitments is what I think it is.
Yes, and I think this condition would be temporary because as we move couple of months down the line, this wouldn't be the normal. It would change because the number of vacancies would open up, the market would expand, so there would be a demand for CPL holders. Okay.
Some airlines are not even charging anything for the airline training.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is also an option. What
Absolutely.
have.
Go for other
Okay,
airlines.
go for
right?
the other airlines.
The other airlines that are not charging it.
Yes.
And if someone wants to become a pilot and that's their dream, and if they don't have sufficient funds to sponsor their pilot training, what advice or what is another way for them to become a pilot?
So if anyone is not ready to spend 50 lakh rupees,
Correct.
then in that case I would suggest that they can go for the Air Force pilot vacancy, which comes up if there is any NDA vacancy or if there is any AFCAT exam, then they can go for it. And in that case, the government sponsors for the entire Air Force training to become an Air Force pilot. Of course, the criteria for selection is extremely stringent in terms of the medical fitness as well as in terms of your sharpness to react to certain things.
Correct.
So, medical fitness, even for that matter, anyone who has specs cannot be selected in the Air Force pilot examination.
Is it so?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure.
So in that case, it becomes challenging. But if you consider, if you are medically fit, then yes, you can go for it. And yes, when I was a first officer, I have flown with so many Air Force captains who have been there and retired from there at a certain designation, and after 45 years of their age, they have come to civil aviation. And in that case, the airline most certainly sponsors for their type rating for whichever aircraft they are inducted on and appointed on.
Yeah, that is short service commission or things like that. Yes,
that is one way in which, if you do not have that financial preparedness to spend for your commercial pilot training, then yes, this is also an option that you can go for.
Yes, and the other way I think is to get a loan from a bank, So right now, like since I have this consultation call thing where I guide students
Right.
who want to become a pilot. So I
Absolutely.
get this question like how to apply for loan and stuff.
Absolutely.
So for that, there's one website called as gyandan.com
Okay.
where you get loan particularly for the field of aviation. Right. So they have a separate department for people who want to become a pilot. Right. So they have some agents and stuff which will help you through the process. You have to submit your documents. But for that, you will require a collateral. So how it works is, let's say you want...
What's the interest rates on it like?
Right now, the interest rates have dropped. So it's around 8 to 10%.
Okay.
It's the collateral, right? So they ask for a collateral. The amount of loan that would be disbursed would be around 60% of the property value.
Yeah, so in 10% of the interest rate, okay, say 70 lakh rupees is your borrowing amount, right? Because that is an average cost of CPL and type rating, everything usually costs about 65 to 70 lakh rupees in today's date, right? 70 lakh rupees is the total borrowing, okay? And you take the longest possible loan, which is say 10 years or 15 years. 15 years. You get 15 years loan for it?
Yes, depending on the collateral, they would assist you with 10, 15, 7 and stuff. Right?
Correct. So what would be, if I do that, then what would be my EMI?
Like, let's say you take a loan for 70 lakh rupees for 15 years. The EMI would be around 75,000 rupees approximate per month after you complete your commercial pilot training, right? And you also get the option to delay your EMI. Let's say after you get your CPL, you want to wait for a year for a EMI to start.
Correct.
Okay, so you can request the bank to delay your EMI. For a year.
But the interest will be charged,
yes,
right?
the interest would be charged and that would be bit on the expensive side. But if that 1 year window, you can find a job.
Correct.
And once you get a job, initially the salary of a junior first officer is around 1 lakh. First officer is around 2 to 2.5 lakhs. So initially that amount would be a bit difficult to pay managing the daily expenses.
Correct.
But as you go down the line, let's say 3 to 4 years, once you become a captain, you get salary of 5 to 6 lakh rupees per month. Then within 2 to 3 years, you can pay that entire amount.
So it will be 75,000 after completion of the CPL.
Yes.
That is the amount that will start as an EMI, right?
Yes.
Okay, understood. 75, and then as you mentioned that there needs to be a buffer period for say 2 years, right?
Correct.
1.5 to 2 years.
Correct.
So 75,000. In the meanwhile, you mentioned that you can defer that
Yes.
1.5 to 2 years. So you can defer, or you just need to keep on paying the interest. How it works?
No, you can opt for, if you want to pay the interest, you can do that. But if you don't want to pay anything, you can delay the EMI for a year or 1.5.
Okay.
Depending on the bank, it differs.
Correct.
Some banks will allow you to defer it by a year. Some will allow you to defer it by 2 years.
Correct.
Okay. As long as you have the collateral value up.
Correct. Like basically adding the interest, it should be computed to 60% of the
Yes.
value of the collateral.
Yes.
Right. Understood. So that makes sense. And then the person gets to in an airline in 2 years, say, okay, 1.5 to 2 years. Then the salaries, right? So
the salaries as a JFO is around 70,000 to 1 lakh rupees, and within like 6 months your JFO phase is completed and you get promoted to first officer.
correct.
For a first officer, the salary is around 2 to 2.5 lakh.
Yeah, how much it
For that, you
usually
can
on
check out the another video on this channel where we have already mentioned about the salaries
Right.
of
Yes.
and career progression of a pilot, right from student pilot to a captain and then examiner.
approximately on an average it would be
On an average for a first officer, it is, if you consider the pre-COVID salaries, yes, 2 to 2.5 lakhs.
okay,
and
first officer salary, that
Then,
is
that is the first
that
officer
is
salary.
pre-COVID, and post-COVID it would be say
Post-COVID, it is about, you can just take 50% of that.
right. So
Yeah.
bottom line, you can pay 75,000
Yes.
EMI
As a
once
first
you
officer.
once you
Yes.
get a job. But
Yes.
then honestly, most 12th pass students think that as they become a pilot, their life's gonna be extravagant with a lot of salary, with huge like it's not immediate, right? It takes some time, but once you become a captain, once you become experienced, once you get into an airline, then gain some experience, eventually over a period of time, yeah, the salaries become good, the loan starts getting paid, and then as you mentioned that once you become a captain, you can pay it off within few years, right?
Yes, definitely. So, as we discussed, like if someone wants to find out their financial eligibility to become a pilot, they can log on to gyandan.com and fill out their form, and the agent will reach you out and ask you about the details. You
Correct.
just share it with them, and you'll know. But if you are taking a loan, like what's the tenure you are looking at?
I'd say take as long of a tenure as you can. How long of a education loan one can take? 10 to 15 years,
Yes,
right?
10 to 15 years.
Right. So the point is why I would say that go for the longest tenure possible is because right after completion of CPL, okay, there is a bottleneck of finances, right? Like right after finishing CPL, then junior first officer phase or early training phase, the salaries are not that big initially, right? So in that period, paying 75,000 a month sounds like a bit reasonable, right? If it is say 1,50,000 a month, it can actually be really difficult, right?
Correct.
And reasonable in comparison to the salaries I'm speaking here. Because any cost is a subjective number, right?
Yes.
Like for a billionaire, 75 lakh rupees is nothing, okay? For someone who's making 1 lakh rupees a month, for that person 75 lakh rupees is a big amount. So in comparison to the pilot salaries in initial phase, right, 75,000 sounds like a reasonable amount to be going to EMI per month.
With that, they also have to manage the daily expenses.
Correct.
Right, so if they are located into a new base, they would have to rent out the place and live by themselves and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so if they go for a tenure which is around 10 to 15 years, it would be very easy for them to repay the loan
Right.
without stressing out too much.
Right.
Correct.
Right. 75,000 a month is what pilot training costs for 15 years.
Yes.
Yeah, no, honestly, we are moving into a finance economy, basically a loan kind of economy, the credit card economy. India is moving. It's becoming a consumer market. We don't look at like how much Netflix costs me per year. We look at, okay, it's at 690 per month, right? So that's how pilot training costs 75,000 rupees per month.
Yes.
So better get the job ASAP because the per month expense is going on.
Yes. And it is a factor that, this struggle and this amount which we have to end up spending, that is a struggle till you get a first job. Once you get a first job in the airline as a first officer, then if you are dedicated, the upgrades will happen and it becomes easier for you financially to repay the loan.
Yeah.
And as a responsible daughter or a son, it should be your moral responsibility that you do repay that loan if you have taken it from your parents.
Absolutely.
And if you have taken a loan, then definitely you are bound legally to pay the loan to the bank.
I mean,
Yes.
I mean the struggles which we face, like you faced, we faced, every pilot who have faced, like if you take into account the 2008 recession, then 2014 the airlines going down, then 2020 the COVID happened, right? So the life of pilot is glamorous, but with that there are dips in the aviation market.
Yeah, there is a sacrifice for
Yes.
sure. Yeah, definitely.
So this is part and parcel of aviation life. So if you are a pilot, be ready for it. What I have seen through the years is every 10 years there's a downfall for the industry, and with each downfall the aviation industry come back stronger.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, I mean, every dip is above the dip of the last dip. Right?
Yes.
So overall graph, if we look at it, like overall 10 years graph, if we look at it, number of aircraft in aviation industry 10 years ago, okay, was lesser than the number of aircraft in aviation industry today, right?
Yes.
Like, without a doubt.
Yes.
That means number of pilots 10 years ago in aviation industry was lesser than what it is now, right?
Correct.
Yes.
And the same will continue to happen in coming 10 years or coming 50 years, okay? 50 years, I don't know, there would be automated planes or something, I don't know. We don't have to be bothered about that because it doesn't
Matter to us.
matter to us. We'll be old or non-existent by that time. So as we mentioned that the costs is a relative number, right? 75,000 for a captain is not a big number, right? In relation to a captain's salary, 75,000 is not a big number for a captain, but in early stage it is. So as you become captain, yeah, we can pay it off real quick.
Yes.
All right, if you have watched until now, thank you for watching, subscribing, and we'll see you in the next video. And comment down below if you have any other questions. And with this, we don't mean that everyone should become a pilot. 75,000 a month can be a big number, can be a small number. It's a relative number. It's your choice whether to become a pilot or not. If you choose to become a pilot, then all this is applicable. And if you choose to become a pilot, then be a good pilot, right? Prepare for all of these things in advance. We inform you about the possible challenges that could come in future so that you could well prepare for it and you're not caught off guard when you get to that point, right? So that's all. I guess that's why we discuss these things,
Yes,
right?
of course.
Yes.
And also, if the 75,000 is a big number, or okay, if someone is not eligible for the loan or something, okay, huge respect to the Air Force pilots, okay. Choose that way if you are certain about becoming a pilot, but there are financial means are not supporting that much. Choose Air Force. It will definitely take way more hard work than what it does for civil aviation. Okay, 100% without a doubt, and that's why Air Force pilots are so well respected. There is a reason for it. Okay, go that pathway. Work even harder and get into Air Force. That does not mean the people who cannot afford pilot training go to Air Force. No, nothing like that. Pilots in Air Force are the smartest and most decisive people, in humans, honestly. Like, they are really high performance human beings. So you can choose that pathway, okay? Like Capt.Neha mentioned, AFCAT or NDA, those pathways are there. Civil aviation is expensive. How to plan finances for civil aviation, we just went over it just now, right? That's all. Yeah, you wanna say something?
I'm sure you have got some valuable information from this podcast and got the insight of how to arrange for finances for your pilot training. If you have any queries or if you want us to make any videos on a particular topic, please mention in the comments below and we would be happy to make one. Thank you so much. Wish you all the very best.
And if you are an aspiring pilot, okay, you need to give DGCA exams, okay? CNTAA, the Pilot Ground School, is India's #1 online on-demand pilot ground school for pilots, okay? So sign up for CNTAA, where Capt.Neha will be teaching you everything about the DGCA exam, starting from navigation, meteorology, technical general, be it anything, okay, where she also mentors you through your pilot training, okay. So it's a great resource, okay. Sign up for it, and if you are an aspiring pilot, then enroll for the full course, okay. It was nice talking with you all and talking to both of you. All right, bye.
No.
Thank you for watching. Hope we have added some value and you are clear about the financial part of the pilot training. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye.